if you want to get good at pull-ups, do pull-ups. Colonel Matt Schreier said that at practice one day. And I knew immediately that it was true. Not just literally true, but it's also a great metaphor for what we're trying to do at Seton Swim and Dive. I think pretty much every high school coach would claim they're trying to develop character in their student athletes, but I wonder how many of them have taken the time to think about what that actually means. When I think about the character of a person, I like to start with first principles. And for me, the first principles are the cardinal virtues. If anyone loves righteousness, here's from Wisdom 8:7. If anyone loves righteousness, her labors are virtues, for she teaches self-control and prudence, justice and courage. This is just one of the many passages in the Bible that refer to a set of moral virtues that have also been enumerated throughout history by sources such as Plato and Cicero. And you probably learned about some of these at Seton. Prudence, practical wisdom, the ability to judge correctly what should be done in each situation and choose the right means to a good end. Justice, fairness in giving each their due. Acting rightly toward others, respecting rights, laws, and moral obligations. Temperance, moderation, and self-control. Restraining excesses, especially in desires and pleasures. Fortitude, strength in difficulty. The capacity to face fear, hardship, and suffering without giving up what is right. These moral virtues, here from the Catechism, govern our actions, order our passions, and guide our conduct according to reason and faith. As a coach and parent, I think it's important to differentiate between the moral virtues and the theological virtues of faith, hope, and charity. Because unlike the theological virtues, which are gifts from God, which can only be perfected through our human action, the moral virtues can be attained through reason and repetitive action. Even in a soul that doesn't have the benefit of baptism or the sacraments. Grace elevates them, of course, perfects them, of course, but as Colonel Schreier might tell us, if you want to develop in the moral virtue, you must practice the moral virtues. So let's home in on one of those virtues, more specifically the virtue of fortitude. I've always believed that the sport of swimming is uniquely suited to help coaches and parents provide opportunities for the repetitive action required to develop the virtue of fortitude in a controlled, safe, and loving environment. I think it's important because as you guys mature and leave home in the world's going to get less controlled, less safe, and less loving. So now is the time to put you under stress so that when the time comes to face real-world pressures without your parents, you're prepared. I'll tell you guys a little secret that is probably no secret at all to some of you, especially the longer-term families on the Seton swim team. I go out of my way to put you in uncomfortable situations. And I've noticed that it makes more than just you swimmers uncomfortable. How many of you parents drove to the Cystic Fibrosis Swimathon more nervous than your child? How many of you skipped it altogether? You don't have to admit it, but I know some of you skipped it altogether. Go ahead. You admit it to yourself at least, and then listen on. As parents, we love our children deeply. From their first breaths, we've done everything to keep them from suffering. And it makes perfect sense for an infant to comfort an infant who needs a diaper change, who is hungry. But what about an 11-year-old or a 16-year-old? Sometimes as parents, we act like it's our job to protect our kids from suffering. That is not our job. Just because we can eliminate suffering doesn't mean we should. It seems to me it's that sort of attitude is the reason why so many first-generation immigrants are so wildly successful, and by the third generation, their grandkids are trust fund babies. After the CF Swimathon, and especially after the Seton Winter Invitational, that's the meet where everybody who hadn't swum the 500 swam the 500. I engaged my daughter, Kelly Mooney, in a running conversation on the topic, and she introduced me to the idea of Catholic resilience. She started by sending me quotes from a podcast called Interior Integration for Catholics by Dr. Peter Malinowski. And here's what he said. Catholic resilience is the process of accepting and embracing adversity, traumas, trials, stresses, and sufferings as crosses. Catholic resilience sees these crosses as gift from our loving, attuned God, gifts to transform us, to make us holy, to help us be better able to love and to be loved than we were before, and to ultimately bring us into loving union with Him. Crosses are a gift. That sounds a lot like a core teaching of our Catholic faith. Here's how Kelly, as we went back and forth, here's how she kind of synthesized the ideas for me. So I can accept and embrace the suffering in my life as a cross if I have confidence in God's providential care and love for me specifically. If I don't have that confidence, then it will be nearly impossible to view, accept, and embrace any suffering as a cross, whether I brought it upon myself through sin or is imposed upon me through circumstance, like Coach Koehr. If I embrace my cross and unite my suffering with the suffering of Christ, it will be redemptive, which gives it purpose. And some of you thought Seton Swim and Dive was about swimming and diving. As I'm fond of saying, swimming isn't about swimming. Now, I doubt any of you parents listening, are going to disagree with Kelly's theology. But does it make any of you less nervous when I put your young child in an uncomfortable situation like swimming the 500 free for the very first time in public? So for Kelly, I took one more stab at making her feel better, and I introduced her to the work of New York University Stern School psychologist and business school professor Jonathan Haidt. Around 2019, Dr. Haidt published a book called The Coddling of the American Mind. Prior to 2019, I don't think I ever would imagine that I'd be talking about the work of a liberal New York business professor at a Seton swimming event, but it's impossible not to recognize the wisdom in this. The underlying premise of Dr. Haidt's, as I try to apply it in my role as a parent and a swimming coach, is this: kids are not fragile, nor are they completely durable. They are anti-fragile. Now, some of you might recognize this concept as originally from Nassim Nicholas Taleb. He's also from NYU, a quantitative scientist, and he wrote the book The Black Swan, that a lot of adult business people will certainly recognize. The word anti-fragile in his conception of it is an entity that is strengthened by stress. He says, a fragile object fractures, a durable object maintains its integrity, an anti-fragile object may break down now and then, but properly supported, it will bounce back from the trial stronger than ever. Can you think of things that are anti-fragile? How about steel hardened in a forge? How about clay hardened in the sun? Or how about our muscles? When we're training, it's the healing that makes our muscles strong. The reason we train is to break down our muscles so that they have to heal. Some things get stronger with stress. And one of those things that gets stronger with stress is children. All of you are anti-fragile. As coaches, we work to develop the character of the swimmers on our team, with fortitude being one of the key elements of characters. And we recognize, as coaches, we recognize that swimming is a wonderful vehicle to provide an anti-fragile being with an opportunity to practice what Coach Schreier might call repetitive action. On the shallowest physical level, we're talking about a sport where you get faster by accepting pain in practice, and where the winner of the race is often the person willing to accept the most pain. Has anyone ever heard me say that before? Yeah. But there are other stresses we encounter in swimming that make us stronger too. Do you think I like to get up any earlier than you do? It makes me so sad to hear people say, I'm not going to swim because I'm not a morning person. Who the heck is a morning person? And how about those of you who don't make the A relay? Or worse, those of you who get knocked off an A relay by some young new 8th grader. And like most of you, how about those who never qualify for a relay at all? Are those bad things? Yeah, they may hurt, but they're not bad unless you haven't been giving your best effort. In a world that so many divide into oppressors and oppressed, in a world where every athlete gets a trophy, I'm fond of telling kids and adults, never play the victim, even if you are. We're not creating snowflakes at Seton Swim and Dive. We're creating Catholic men and women capable of standing up for good, even when it's difficult, even when it involves suffering. We're raising Catholic children who can live a Catholic life confidently and faithfully in the real world. And that is why we practice the habits of fortitude and do not protect our kids from all suffering. In a great version of what I'm talking about, Notre Dame coach Marcus Freeman famously tells his players, choose hard. Here's how I know I'm right about the value of choosing hard. Think about this. Think about the level of joy you guys felt the last time you were hanging out with your friends and watching a movie. And now compare that with the joy you felt when you looked up at the scoreboard and saw your new personal record time. Or the joy you felt, some of you felt, the first time you completed a 500 free in a competition. If you're being honest with yourself, the two don't compare. Here's another data point that tells me I'm right. I've had countless other coaches tell me that if they forced all their kids to swim the 500, they'd all quit. I don't know, 115 swimmers on the team? I think not. Every one of those 115 have to swim the 500 every year. I don't think they quit. Now, I know Kelly here was a high-level athlete, so she already understood all this. But she still had one more question. She's like, Dad, can't you put something under so much stress that you break it permanently? Where's that line? And all I could tell her is what I've observed for 26 years of coaching with this mindset. I said, I don't know where that line is, honey, but I'm 100% sure that nothing we do at Seton Swim and Dive will ever be on the wrong side of it. It's not like swimming 10 or 12 continuous minutes going to cause you permanent physical or psychological damage. In fact, the opposite happens. And can you imagine a safer, more loving environment to learn these lessons than the Seton Swim and Dive team? Just let it happen. What I'm talking about here is the basis for one of our gems, sacrifice. You've heard this Pope Benedict quote many times from me. The world offers you comfort, but you were not made for comfort. You were made for greatness. So let's all go and do some more pull-ups. Thank you.